Welcome to another Super Deluxe Edition unboxing video, and today we're going to take a look at Who's Next, the Super Deluxe Edition 10 CD and Blu-ray box set of the classic 1971 album. Now this is a behemoth, this is massive, it's like a 5 kilogram box set, and in fact it's not just called Who's Next, it's called Who's Next and Lifehouse, which is a nod to the aborted vision that Pete Townshend had to do another concept album, which was called Lifehouse. That's what it was going to be called. I'll speak more about that in a little while. You can see here there's 2 books, and there's a section for memorabilia, and then there's the 11 discs, which are in 2 separate folios. Classic front cover, of course, looks very good. Again, you've got the dual title here, Who's Next and Lifehouse. The N on Who's Next was a small N on the album, but I can see why they've done it here, because otherwise it doesn't really, typography doesn't really balance out. So there's a little concession there to the retitling of this box set. Let's take the contents out and have a look. Before we actually get onto the contents, just pay tribute to a classic album cover, the weird grey monolith on a slag heap, with some of the members having just relieved themselves. I'm not sure I ever really noticed that until recent times, but there you go. This is the back, so this just summarises what we're getting here. There's 10 CDs and then there's a Blu-ray audio with a Stephen Wilson stereo and Atmos mix, and I think there's a 5.1 mix as well. Yeah, there is. So there's a series of mixes, not just the album but some bonus tracks as well. Quite like the fact it's written this way around, so when it's on the shelf you don't have to kind of turn your head, so that's quite nice. Okay, let's start off with this first folio. Covers the discs 1 to 6 in the package. Fairly sort of familiar box set content. The big thing to say is that each disc is in its own sleeve, which is great to see. Six discs on this first one. Obviously what we've got here is the main album, Who's Next. So this is 9 tracks remastered, and there's the disc design. Quite a nice touch here actually, that they've got the track listing and the timings of the track right where the disc sits, so instead of having to pull it out and look at it and guess what's on some of these bonus discs, it tells you here, so that's quite a nice touch, I think. Disc number 2, Pete Townshend Lifehouse demo 70 to 71, part 1, part 2, so they're split across 2 discs, and nice to see the original tape design utilised here. This first disc has got a 13-minute demo of Barbara O'Reilly on it, so that's one of the highlights. Very nicely designed. This is when the Lifehouse concept was still in Pete's mind. Teenage Wasteland was going to be a kind of an introduction type thing. So yeah, as I said, the original demo, alternate mix of Mary, Behind Blue Eyes. And then disc number 2, same kind of design here. So we've got Won't Get Fooled Again. We've got first editing demo of Barbara O'Reilly. Original mix of Mary. Original demo of Song Is Over. Another Barbara O'Reilly there. So, you know, this is all fascinating stuff. We've got 20 demos across the 2 discs. And they won't fit on one, in case you're wondering. So that's fair enough that they've spread those across 2. In 1971 they had a week in New York where I think by this point they'd lost the funding for the Lifehouse project, and they'd sort of abandoned the idea and were just trying to consolidate and record the album that became Who's Next. Again, great use of the tape boxes for the sleeves. And we've got take 13 of Won't Get Fooled Again. We've got version 1, take 15 of Behind Blue Eyes. The Note, which became Pure and Easy, so that was one of the Lifehouse tracks. Behind Blue Eyes version 2. So loads of interesting stuff here. They eventually went back to London to carry on. Yeah, and this is when they went back to London. So obviously these discs, apart from the album, which is disc 1, these discs are in chronological order of the events of the time, what happened. You know, early demos, Lifehouse didn't really work out, went to New York, came back to London Olympic Sound Studios, and, you know, kind of finished off the record really. So we've got, what we've got here, 16 tracks on this one. Unedited mix of My Wife, which is the John track. Relay, unedited mix joined together. Love Ain't for Keeping, unedited mix. Loads of early mixes. So very interesting. There you go. So this has got the look and feel of the Olympic Studios. And then this final disc, Singles and Sessions, it largely gathers up single mixes, you know, edits and things. So we've got the original single mix of The Seeker, which was a non-album single, of course. We've got, what else have we got here? We've got an unedited version. Actually, there's two versions of The Seeker. Here's the unedited version. And then the original single mix. The single mixes of When I Was a Boy, Let's See, Action, Joined Together, Relay. Loads of good stuff on here. Nice artwork. And there's the disc. So I like the detail on this particular item. You know, great artwork on the sleeves, all the track information and timings in the actual wallet itself. This looks great. And there's a summary of what's inside. Of course, the second one continues where the first one left off. It all looks the same in terms of design. But we get onto live stuff now. So this is the Who at the Young Vic. The Young Vic was where they were doing some shows. They were planning the Lifehouse. They had the money for the film and they were kind of rehearsing there and coming up with conceptual ideas. I think the idea was they were going to film there. But so yes, this is live at the Young Vic, 1971. So this would have been like the first time, or certainly one of the first times they were playing some of these songs. And again, this is a 2-disc situation. The content is too much to fit on one disc, so they've spread it over 2. The Young Vic was literally brand new at this point in time. It's near Waterloo in central London, in South London. There's a place a road called The Cut. That's where the Young Vic is. That's where they would have been. They literally, some of these shows, they literally just pull people off the street and said, do you want to come in? 400-seater venue. Imagine that. And then the second disc carries on here. So you got Won't Get Fooled Again, notably the last track, Pinball Wizard, My Generation. You know, they did some hits as well. It wasn't all new stuff. There's second disc. And then discs 9 and 10 are further live cuts. So the album had come out by this point, so we're at the end of 1971. December 1971 to be precise. And this is their gig in San Francisco at the Civic Auditorium. So the album was very successful. It had gone to #1 in the UK charts. So this was, even though it didn't really become the Lifehouse as Pete Townsend wanted, it was a very successful album. Of course, it's regarded as, in many quarters, as the Who's best record. So the final disc is a Blu-ray audio, no video content on here. It says it on the front here, Dolby Atmos, DTS HD 5.1 and PCM stereo. So what you're getting here is you're getting Stephen Wilson Dolby Atmos mix, you're getting a Stephen Wilson 5.1 mix, and you're getting a Stephen Wilson stereo mix as well. It's not totally clear here, it says PCM stereo, but that is a stereo remix, so that's different to the stereo on disc 1. And what's really good about this is you get the album, but then you get all these bonus tracks as well in the same 3 versions. In fact, I think there's 2 stereos of the album. There's the original mix on here, and then there's a Stephen Wilson stereo mix. But the bonus tracks, there's no original mix because nothing was ever released, because these are kind of unreleased bonus tracks. So you get Atmos, you get 5.1, and you get the Stephen Wilson stereo mix, but there is no original stereo mix for the bonus tracks because there was no original stereo mix in the first place, if you see what I mean. Yes, this is brilliant. So you get the unedited version of The Seeker. This is kind of like a selection some of the best stuff. So you get the unedited version of the Seeker, you get an Alma Farmer, what else have we got here? A Relay unedited version, Joined Together unedited version. I mean, there's loads of great stuff here. It's fascinating. The only thing I have to point out is Bargain was the only track they couldn't find the multi-track tapes for, so that's like an up mix. Everything else is properly done. But this is going to be a highlight for many people. This is a Blu-ray disc, of course. You need a Blu-ray player, you need a sound bar or a amplifier and surround speaker setup to get the most out of the Atmos mix. So there, that's the discs. This is discs 7 to 11. So that's the disc. So it wouldn't be a super deluxe edition box set without a bit of memorabilia, replica memorabilia. And that's what this big wallet's about. It actually says it on the side there, memorabilia. So this flap opens. And what we have inside is a set of Who badges. Quite nice quality actually for a badge, because they have that little thing on the back. So that's quite nice. And then a photo with the band's signatures printed on it. A couple of Replica tour programs. This is a Rainbow Theatre one. And then some posters here, so these are quite big posters. There you go, there's a rainbow poster. In fact, there's 3 posters in. There's a Denver Coliseum poster. I'm not surprised they've done this, because all the other Who box sets had something like this, so that kind of makes sense. That folds back up like that. And now what you're left with are 2 books, 2 very big hardcover books. Let's start off with this. So this is the book of the box set, the book of the album, which takes you through in a lot of detail the making of the record. I mean, incredible amount of detail. I've read this book now, and it's absolutely amazing, this book. It's perfect for sitting there and listening to the music, because it just tells you everything you need to know. You know, this is quite a good summary of the content actually. So you've got an introduction about Lifehouse from Pete Townsend, an essay, a great essay by Matt Kent called The Note, then writings about the album, Who's Next, Andy Neal. Pete Townsend then personally takes you through all his demos and talks about them in a lot of detail, which is amazing. Andy Neal goes into what happened in New York at the record plant, and then talks about the Olympic Sound studio sessions, and you know, it carries on detail about live performance. And then at the end, Stephen Wilson and Richard Whittaker talk about the remixes, the spatial audio, etc. So it really does cover everything, this book. I mean, the crux of kind of understanding Who's Next is understanding about the Lifehouse project, and it's easier said than done actually, because even today, you know, Pete gives you a big intro here and tells you all about it, what it was, what his thinking was, the whole concept behind it. But you get to the end and you kind of think, run that by me again, because it's pretty complicated. So I mean, I'm not surprised at the time a lot of people didn't get it, because there was no modern even today with all the modern references like Black Mirror and, you know, the internet and everything that's happened since then, it's still kind of weird and wonderful, but very ambitious and very, very interesting, you know. So yeah, so he gives you his intro there, but then this section here, the note, it kind of, Matt Kent does a brilliant job of explaining and really setting the scene, just going back and talking about what was going on at the time, you know, Pete's thinking, the band's thinking, you know, they were getting a bit bored of playing Tommy night after night, wanted to do something different. Yeah, this is amazing, because I must admit, you know, I wasn't that up on what the Lifehouse was all about, but it was this concept about, there's Pete's mobile home, which inspired him to write Going Mobile. But yeah, the concept's very sort of technical, very detailed. sometimes a bit kind of contradictory. It's a tricky thing to understand, but you know, you got the funding and it nearly happened in the end. But it, you know, as I say, there's loads of detail here. It's a really, really good read. I mean, the books in Who box sets are normally good, but this is cut above, really. Yes, it just goes on and on. I don't know how big this book is, but it's like 100 pages or something. This is the section on Who's Next. So it just goes through the album. But the Lifehouse demos are really good because, you know, this is getting it from the horse's mouth. You know, which songs were part of Lifehouse, which songs weren't part of Lifehouse. Pete's great. He goes into his home recording setup, how much he liked his home studio in Twickenham, which was where he lived at the time. And then John Astley, who remastered all of this stuff, he now lives in the house that Pete lives in. So Pete makes the point that they've remastered these demos in the place where he first recorded them, which is really quite sweet, you know. But yeah, I mean, this is a track-by-track summary of what the song was about, why he recorded it, how he recorded it. I mean, it's really amazing, to be honest. Pete Townshend's brilliant at, you know, treating everything very importantly and kind of explaining the thought process behind things in a way that not a lot of artists are like that, you know. So he just goes through it. I mean, there's some tracks, Mary, there's 2 versions of Mary, and he says how he prefers the original mix to the remix, and it's very detailed and very satisfying to read about, to be honest. And then it goes into the New York sessions, really kind of telling the story of all these discs that are in the box set. Yeah, there's a section here on the Olympic Sound Studios recordings. There's actually a little addendum here. They've updated some dates on I Don't Know Myself because they must have found some extra information or something, so that's good. And then it talks here about the singles and single remixes, etc. There's a section here about the live stuff, so you know, it really is everything you need to know about this record. Kind of puts other books in box sets to shame, really. And then Stephen Wilson writes some notes, explains what was going on with the Atmos mix and his approach to it and everything, which is always nice to see. And that's that book. So I mean, this is really, really important information in this book, and obviously it's fantastic to listen to the music and then read about it at the same time. Now, the other book, definitely not as essential as the previous one, but this is actually a graphic novel. I think this was something that Pete Townshend was quite keen on doing. So this is a graphic novel that depicts his story, his vision of Lifehouse. You know, what this project that didn't come to fruition, he's kind of brought it to life by commissioning this graphic novel, basically. This is massive, this book, and I guess you either like graphic novels or you don't, but you know, fair play. This is, if you want to understand the thought behind the Lifehouse and the story and the themes and the concepts and all the rest of it, then this is going to give you that story, I guess. So yeah, I mean, it's big, it goes on and on. It's an interesting thing to do. I mean, graphic novels have become quite big things, haven't they? Blondie did one for their box set. Tori Amos did one to celebrate 30 years of Little Earthquakes. So they're including this within the box set. It's not like a separate thing. Some people might not like that, but yeah, I mean, incredible amount of work's obviously got into this, and that's the second of 2 hardback books within the Who's Next Lifehouse box set. So all that remains for us to do is put everything back. So there's book number 1 there, that's the Lifehouse graphic novel. Book number 2 is the main book about the album. This wallet here is the memorabilia that we saw earlier. And then last but not least, the 11 discs that make up the Who's Next Lifehouse box set. Clearly this is a hefty investment. for a hefty box set, but I think the amount of music that's on the 10 CDs and the Blu-ray, combined with that amazing book, it makes it a very impressive artifact. The graphic novel will definitely be a little bit divisive. You know, do you want it? Why is it in there, etc. But I guess all these years later, Pete Townshend is still kind of semi-obsessed with the inspiration behind Who's Next, which he described as a compromise album in the end. It was obviously a very successful record, but to him it was a compromise because it wasn't his full vision. So anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this look at the Who's Next Lifehouse, a super deluxe edition box set, 10 CDs, 1 Blu-ray audio, 2 hardcover books, and then a memorabilia wallet full of badges, posters, and replica programs. This is out in mid-September, so if you have enjoyed the video, why not subscribe to the Super Deluxe Edition YouTube channel for more great physical music unboxed. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you again next time.